My journey in this complex and multifaceted operation began with a completely unexpected summons to higher management. There, I was informed about an extremely important situation. At the Inza railway station, a patrol had detained a man who introduced himself as the senior member of a group of infiltrated German agents. This man flatly refused to engage in any dialogue with the local Chekists, categorically insisting on a personal meeting with a counterintelligence officer who had arrived from the Stalingrad front. His demand was unwavering. It was this responsible role that fell to me, a Chekist from the State Security Directorate for the Kuibyshev region. My documents were prepared in the shortest possible time, and together with Lieutenant Colonel Kondryshkin, we immediately set off to the specified destination where these events were unfolding. Typically, the German command sent sabotage groups of paratroopers consisting of 3 people deep into the Soviet rear. The group was formed from agents who had undergone special training in various intelligence schools. The commander of such a group was usually the agent who had been trained in Warsaw, as the level of training at this school was considered higher and more thorough. In this particular group, the senior agent was Ovi Yankin, who had been trained in Warsaw, Indiana the past, as an officer of the Soviet headquarters. He was severely wounded in the leg in the first days of the war and taken prisoner by the German officers, sensing his weakness and vulnerability, provided him with the necessary medical assistance, and then suggested that he undergo advanced training at the intelligence school in Warsaw. He agreed to this proposal without any coercion from the German command. The second agent, Otryakin, was also not selected at random. Before the war, he worked as a simple loader on the Volga River. His main task was to blend unnoticed into the environment of river workers so that he could constantly monitor the movement of military units and cargo on the river. The third agent, Nyazin, was supposed to infiltrate the working environment of the railway, where he knew the entire production process perfectly. Each of them had their own authentic documents confirming their identity. Ovi Yankin also had a discharge from the hospital, stating his release due to health reasons and his direction to his permanent place of residence. In Ulyanovsk, his father worked as a watchmaker, and his sick mother and sisters also lived there. The other agents operating in the Volga region also had relatives, which greatly facilitated their legalization in Soviet territory and reduced the risk of their exposure. The sabotage group was dropped in the early morning hours. A strong, gusty wind caused them to land a considerable distance from each other, which hampered their interaction. After landing, Ovi Yankin buried a radio and a large sum of money in a secluded place, then left the forest and almost immediately encountered a patrol conducting a sweep of the area. During the landing, Otryakin got caught on the top of a tall pine tree and hung there. Unable to get down on his own, local collective farmers noticed the parachute canopy and, armed with improvised tools, immediately headed to the landing site to detain the saboteur. Without hesitation, he opened fire on them with an automatic weapon. After one of the women was wounded, a local hunter intervened. He fired a shot with buckshot and cut the parachute lines, as a result of which the saboteur fell to the ground from a great height and was immediately captured by the people who had rushed to the scene. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave a like so that you can hear even more interesting and fascinating stories about the events of World War II, as well as the opinions of all participants on various dramatic episodes. Inza railway station. Unlike the other 2 members of the sabotage group, Nyazin did not intend to carry out any reconnaissance missions. He changed into railway worker clothes, took the necessary documents, and immediately went to his parents in the city of Kinel. His beloved bride, Iniuta, also lived there. His father held one of the high managerial positions in the city. Everyone was, of course, very happy about the sudden appearance of their missing son. If it had not been for his extreme secrecy, nervousness, and suspicious behavior, the father's position might have reduced the vigilance of local Chekist officers. However, his unusual behavior during a walk with the girl, as if he was constantly afraid of being followed, made them suspicious. In the end, after 3 days, the failed agent was detained and arrested. I interrogated Ovi Yankin directly at the place of his detention. Soon, Otryakin was also brought there. According to a direct order from Stalin, German saboteurs who offered armed resistance during their detention were to be shot on the spot without any trial or investigation, which was immediately carried out in accordance with the order. Ovyankin was included in a special radio game, the main goal of which was to convince the German command that Russian troops were preparing a massive offensive near Moscow and not near Stalingrad, as was actually the case. The new idea was suggested to us by the leader of the sabotage group himself during the interrogation. Before their departure, the Germans had told him about a large number of deserters hiding in the forest near Ulyanovsk. They believed that they could be recruited as agents for cooperation, providing intelligence assistance. A group of experienced Chekists who had experience in conducting various operational activities was selected from the State Security Administration of Samara. They were sent to the specified forest area, where they pretended to be deserters. They dug dugouts and lived there, only occasionally going to the nearest settlements to get the necessary food supplies. Meanwhile, Ovyankin was employed in a brigade of real topographers who were engaged in surveying the area. Then the deserters, quite by chance, stumbled upon him in the forest during their food runs. He sincerely believed that they were real deserters since the Chekists did not reveal all the true information about the operation to him. There was also an urgent need to inform Ovyankin's parents that their son was alive and safe, but it had to be done in such a way that they would not spread this news among their acquaintances and relatives. I wrote a letter under his dictation stating that he was in a partisan unit and was fighting against the German fascist invaders. This letter was handed over through Ovyankin's father, who had been summoned to the district military commissariat. He was strictly ordered not to tell anyone about the letter received, as the German occupiers were taking revenge on the parents of partisans even behind the front lines. Subsequently, from time to time, a messenger began to come to Ovyankin's parents with letters from their son. The Chekists selected a man for this purpose who remotely resembled Ovyankin in appearance, and who also had a noticeable limp. Once, he brought the delighted parents a photo in which their son was depicted. All of this was specially organized and filmed in the Naramanov forest. The messenger reported that another man would come to them now, as he now had a completely different job and a responsible task. And at the moment, he had no suitable accommodation. The Ovyankins, without hesitation, offered him to stay with them. In this way, the counterintelligence officers had a man who looked very similar to the agent and was living in his parents' home. After all, the German command simply could not leave the radio operator who regularly transmitted secret and important information to them without thorough verification. In order for me to visit the deserters often, I was assigned a new position, the authorized representative of the City Council on issues of employment for disabled war veterans. A small workshop was organized in the Central Forestry, where the deserters were engaged in making boxes for artillery shells. The German agents knew about their activities and considered it only a cover for their subversive activities. As help, they sent money, forged documents, and power supplies for the radio. Stationed to their people, the deserters lit 4 fires, as agreed in advance, and received the long-awaited cargo. One day, while driving a truck, I picked up a woman on a country road who was hailing on the side of the road. On the way to Ulyanovsk, she carefully and casually tried to find out about my professional activities. She said that she was the wife of a rear admiral who had been evacuated from Moscow along with other employees of various ministries. She rented accommodation on the outskirts of the city and herded goats in the nearby forest. A downed German pilot. When such a trip took place for the 3rd time, the Chekists conducted a thorough check of the information received about the woman. It turned out that she was not lying, but 2 circumstances turned out to be strange. She herded the goats not in a forest clearing, where the grass was more succulent, but in the immediate vicinity of the forest workshops where the deserters worked, and also, as soon as she noticed my car, she would immediately leave the goats to the care of the daughter of the landlady where she lived, and immediately go out onto the road, as if she was waiting for me. Later, she began to openly invite me to her place. I reported this incident to my superiors and received an order to establish closer contact with her. Even many years later, I always assured everyone that although I visited the apartment of the Rear Admiral's wife, nothing reprehensible happened between us. Probably, her behavior would have remained an unsolved mystery if it hadn't been for a completely unexpected case. One day, I found half of a photograph with a downed German pilot over our area. It clearly showed the face of the Rear Admiral's wife as she was born into the world. During one of the regular radio sessions, Wwii received an order from the German command to mark a bridge located in the city of Ulyanovsk with the help of signal flares in the dark. The counterintelligence officers carried out thorough and comprehensive preparations for the reception of the enemy aircraft over an abandoned field camp, which was of no value. The Germans were expected not only by counterintelligence officers, but also by anti-aircraft guns. As a result, the plane was shot down. The pilot still managed to jump out with a parachute and save himself. The search for him took a long time, and in the end, he was found quite by accident. Knowing that the forest area would be surrounded, he hid in a ravine, dug a hole, and carefully covered it with a layer of turf. When he was brought to the counterintelligence officers, he demonstrated in every possible way his complete ignorance of the Russian language. I told him directly that a person who did not know Russian would not be sent on such a responsible mission deep into the country, and then I offered him a deal. If he told in detail and honestly about everything he knew, he would be exchanged for our Russian pilot in a week. If he refused, another pilot would be found, and he himself would be shot for collaborating with the enemy. Radio game. After a few minutes, the pilot spoke in pure Russian without the slightest accent. He turned out to be a Baltic German, recruited as an agent. While the pilot was talking about his mission, I was trying to understand what was bothering me about his appearance. And I understood. The soles of his boots were too thick. In my 7 years of service in the North, I had never seen anything like it. When the soles were cut, a container with 2 special insoles connected by a zipper was found. In each of them, inside were found forged documents, large amounts of money, and encrypted notes. Obviously, these were the addresses of other German agents. Realizing the seriousness of his situation and bargaining for his life, the pilot deciphered everything that was written. There were 2 agents, an employee of the military commissariat who was responsible for recruiting recruits for the front, and the already familiar wife of the Rear Admiral, who turned out to be a German spy. There was also a route agent to ensure communication between the agents. It was then that the second missing half of the lady's photo was found. If the counterintelligence officers had not found the downed pilot, he could well have contacted the agent in the military commissariat, officially leave for the front, and their defect to the enemy and continue his criminal activities. The newly arrested agents were also included in the radio game, which was held from March to November 1942. During this period, the German command dropped several large parcels and 5 landing groups to the deserters. In order to prevent the paratroopers from escaping persecution, a thorough operation was carried out with additional forces each time to detain them. Everything went smoothly, without any major incidents. When Field Marshal Paulus was captured near Stalingrad, I arrived in the city of Kuibyshev to take on a new, no less important assignment. All the participants in this complex operation were invited to the chief, who suggested that they choose for themselves the awards for their valiant work. Even after many years, I remember this case with a feeling of deep satisfaction and pride in my comrades. And the award, honorary Chekist, that I received then was really awarded only for outstanding services to the motherland. Goodbye. We were very glad to see you on our channel. Do not forget to leave your valuable comments, mark like, and subscribe to our channel so as not to miss new interesting stories.